I have to tell you, I am stunned by the lack of leadership that we're seeing on all levels in relation to these student protests. There are problems in our world that are organic. We had a COVID pandemic, and we had to find the solution. And there are problems that are solved by human leadership. And what we're lacking right now is clear, moral, courageous human leadership from the White House, from Sacramento, from the mayor's desk, from the chancellor's desk. People in all of these places are deciding to stay silent or to give tepid responses to what needs to be strong, clear, moral response. I'm just stunned. And what ends up happening is what happened late last night at UCLA, where the people respond not to protests. They weren't responding to protests. They were responding to a lack of leadership from the levels of the White House down to the UCLA chancellor's desk. And I'm appalled. I'm stunned. If these were moral protests, let's go back to that for a moment. What's going on our campuses? If these were moral, if they were based on morality, not some kind of selective morality, then we would have seen, and kids wouldn't, forget what we would have seen. We wouldn't have seen college students on campus or in classes for the last decade at least. Just think about all the atrocities that have been committed around the world in that period, and none of them seem to capture the imagination and the heart and soul of our college students and their professors, by the way. So just think about the Uyghurs, the actual genocide going on in the world, where if you look at the map of China, what you'll notice that's interesting is in a certain province, there are blacked out spaces from satellite imagery. So Google Maps has blacked out spaces to where you can't actually see where the Chinese have encampments where they're keeping the Uyghurs, these Muslims. Just, have you heard? Has the Brooklyn Bridge been blocked because of that? Has anybody done anything in our country because of that atrocity that's going on? I'm not even talking about the American leadership in conversation with the Chinese. That's only one piece. But what you and I are experiencing is the street uprising. So where is the street when it comes to something like that? Or the hundreds of thousands, nearly a million, so more than 600,000 Muslims killed by a Muslim leadership, Syria's Bashar al-Assad. What about the people being slaughtered in the Sudan? What about all of the atrocities? Was there a protest when the Coptic Christians were being slaughtered in Egypt? Nothing. Nothing was said. I didn't see a single road blocked because of that. No pathway in our country was blocked because of that, which tells you this is unique. This, which categorically is not genocide, this is a country defending itself, not offensive warfare, but defensive warfare as a response to what happened, the actual atrocity, using the word correctly and accurately, that was the attack on Israel on October 7th. Israel said, we will and must respond. We must and will respond, and so they've done so. They also told us right away on October 8th, 9th, and 10th, this will be a prolonged response. It will be difficult to watch because war is difficult to watch. We're living in a time in which we're seeing the images of war. Granted, selective images. People are choosing which ones they show us. They're showing us one street in Gaza and not the next. And this isn't to say that there isn't great human suffering going on in Gaza and that the Israeli military hasn't made tactical mistakes, either intentionally or unintentionally, the soldiers committing them. What I would say is they're rare. They'll be investigated as they would in any liberal democracy that demands moral leadership and moral actions from its defenders. But what's happening here is a protest against something as if this is an anomaly on the face of the earth. This is the only occurrence of this on the face of the earth, and it's so egregious that we can't even attend class. But we're not interested in the actually egregious, those things that are happening around this story in the rest of the Middle East. Again, I wrote about this. I just want to remind you that in Tehran, we have images of them hanging gay men from cranes. And yet, I don't remember Fifth Avenue being blocked by protesters over that. I don't remember anything being done to say, this cannot go on planet Earth, not while I live here. And in Gaza, and in the Palestinian territories, where we have video images not only of men being pushed off roofs for being gay, but also a famous Islamic scholarship from that territory saying that they should be, in fact, pushed off roofs and stoned to death. And that somehow doesn't seem to gall us. That doesn't seem to be engaging enough a topic for our well-educated or mal-educated student population. If you think I'm outraged, I am outraged, increasingly so. I am a positive thinking person. I know there's silver linings. One of the silver linings is, yes, that this is being outed. The world sees this. But more than that, I'm outraged that this is going on. And I think it's time that if the leaders don't speak, and don't speak loudly and clearly, that we, the population that puts them in those positions of leadership, need to make our demands and need to make our voices heard and use any power that we have, any leverage that we have to counter the idiocy of what we're seeing on the college campuses and the streets in our country. Ask yourself, by the way, when you counter somebody who's holding a protest sign, if they have a deeper knowledge of the actual conflict and its history, of what's actually going on the ground and has gone on the ground in the Middle East and specifically in Israel in relation to the Palestinians, deeper knowledge than the simple words that anybody can parrot or put on a poster. And then ask yourself other questions, which are, what are the forces behind these protests? How is it that the protesters all over the country seem to have the same outfits and the same posters printed from the same graphic design shop? And the same tents? There's clearly something sinister going on that we need to address.